What we lack for is a damn connection with ourselves. What we starve for is meaning. That is something that the culture cannot and has not provided us. That is something that we must find on our own.
Well, the biggest ego trip going is getting rid of your ego.
Love yourself, have fun with yourself, take care of yourself.
Let's get right into it. I've been really examining a lot of what is most important to me. And this is just part of my inner work and part of my DNA, really. I'm an overthinker by nature. I've lived inside my head for such a long time that it's just become custom for me. And it has its drawbacks. But one of those drawbacks is that you're always thinking. The pro of that is that you're always thinking. So it's kind of a double-edged sword here. I've been re-examining a lot of the priorities in my life, really asking myself what matters. And I have this bookshelf, and I have a bunch of wonderful books written by a bunch of very wise people, some of them dead, some of them alive. And occasionally a book will stick out to me, and I'll just go ahead and pick it up and read it for the day, or maybe spend the next month or so diving into it. And one of those books that I've picked up lately has been an oldie but a goodie that I always come back to. Always draws me back into it. It's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And for whatever reason, there was this one habit that was drawing me. I don't remember which one it was, which number it was, but it was begin with the end in mind. And what he did as he opened up this chapter was there was a visualization exercise in this book where he asked the reader to imagine that they were at a funeral. See the people there, who's there. But when you look inside the casket at this funeral, imagine that it's you. Imagine that it's you in the casket. This is your funeral. He asks the question of, who would you like to see there? He asks the question of, what would you have the people say about you after you're long gone? That's thinking from the end in mind. It's got me thinking, what is most important to me? And I always remember, I'm always brought back to the subject of death. It seems in the culture that we've created a very morbid image of death. Black umbrellas, black suits, tears, somber, stoic images of funerals. That is kind of the Western notion of what death has become for a lot of us. But that's really, in my opinion, it's a very one-dimensional view of death. In my opinion, I think death is our teacher. Death is one of the many teachers for us as human beings. Death helps us to keep things into perspective. Going back to Stephen Covey's visualization exercise, he had said that whatever you would want people to say about you at your funeral, those are the things that are your core values. Because you can't take money, you can't take your achievements with you to the grave. Those things will die with you. But what will live beyond you, you will live on through other people. You will live on through the remembrance and the parts of you that other people carry. Other people will remember how you made them feel. But your achievements, your accomplishments, your bank account, what clothes you wore, a lot of these things, a lot of these trivial things that we attribute way too much energy and attention to really don't matter in the long run. They don't. I also remember, when I was in high school, that's where I learned to be a night owl. I would be up till 1 to 3 in the morning every night doing homework because I was just a master procrastinator. And that was just my style of doing things. But I remember one night I had this overwhelming epiphany or idea. It just overwhelmed me it overwhelmed me with emotion. And it was this idea that, what if I die? Like tomorrow? Don't ask me why at the age of 16 I was asking myself, what if I die tomorrow? Or considering any hypothetical situation from that point of view. That's just what happened at the time. But I was sitting at my parents' kitchen table, and the thought just overwhelmed me with emotion. Like, what if I die? What will I leave behind? Will the people that I love know how much I love them? Will they know that I care about them? And it really became a thing that night. It really kept me up. And immediately I pulled out a piece of notebook paper and I began writing a letter. I remember I began writing a letter to all of the people that were most important to me in my life. You know, parents, girlfriend, cousins, aunts, uncles, friends, whoever it was at the time. I don't even remember. And I recall that I was so tired and it was so late that night that I gave up because there were so many people and there were so many things that I wanted other people to know. Fast forward a couple of years, that was actually the spark of the idea for starting my blog. I'd realized, that night that I had something to say, not just to the people that are close to me, but to the world at large. There was something in my DNA that I wanted to voice. There was some sort of perception, some sort of understanding. There was some sort of musing that really needed to be shared. And I didn't really quite understand what it was. Hell, maybe I still don't. But it needed to be shared. My voice needed an outlet. My writing needed to be seen. And that was the start of the blog that I started creating. I say that to say that death is a catalyst. The goal is to die before you die. That is, to die unto the false self, to die unto your notions of immaturity, of being a child, die unto these notions that are not true, that fall short of what is worthy of you, and to be, as the Christians would say, born again, made anew, incarnate into the world with new, more whole, more grounded ideals, more greater, deeper embodiment of the truth, of your truth as you perceive it, of the truth, ideally. But they're all filtered through this idea of death. Death is our teacher and our guide to help us to keep into perspective what is most important to us. In this world that we live in today, it is a consumerist culture. Its values come from a very different story, a very new story. We have almost every need of ours provided for. Every physical need of ours is provided for the most part. If you live in the Western world, that is just the norm. Today's standards of living are comparable to that of a king's just 300 years ago, hell, 200 years ago. At our fingertips are instantaneous communication. We have transportation that can drive us across the country in just a day. We have planes. We have all these great things, right, that are byproducts of the industrial age. The thing about it is that the industrial age is a very new concept. We have perfected the art of abundance, if such a thing can be considered an art. We've got our animalistic needs provided for. What we lack for is a damn connection with ourselves. What we starve for is meaning. That is something that the culture cannot and has not provided us. That is something that we must find on our own. We lack ritual. We lack ceremony today. And these are things that have almost become commoditized and prostituted by the culture that we live in. I criticize the culture heavily. Again, I owe everything I am to the culture today, though. I don't say this to sound like an enemy of anybody. I don't believe in creating enemies. I believe in compassion and empathy and understanding. I say this to say that in this culture that we live in today, it's very easy to lose sight of the bigger picture and make achievement, make our bank account, make our physical appearance more important than our true values. The sad part is that most of us are so hypnotized with the culture that we really forget that we even have core values. We forget to live by a code of honor. They become kind of passive, choose as you go, very malleable, very flexible, very laissez-faire ideals that we live by. I don't know that it's common nowadays in today's Western society that we live in to really create this kind of code of honor. There's no tradition that's being set forward unless you come from a very Eastern or particularly religious background. And we're more neurotic than ever. That's just the way it is today. I do not say this to preach to you. I do not say this to sound pessimistic or nihilistic. No. I say this because it is possible still to find meaning, to find wholeness in a very unwhole society. And the question that I would pose to you is, what would you want? It's the same question that Stephen Covey poses to us in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It is thinking about it from the long term, the long game, right? After you're gone, make it not about you. What would you want people to say about you at your funeral? What are those values? Death reminds us that this enterprise called life is not about us. I forget exactly which tribe it was, a Native American tribe, but I'm paraphrasing, of course, but they had said something to the extent that they would make decisions with 7 generations in mind, in the best interest of the next 7 generations. And I don't know that that's a very common idea today. It's very tempting to want to play the short term. It's very tempting to get lost in our projections of other people. And this is another thing that death really had me contemplating. As someone who is very growth-oriented and very introspective, I should say, and has every desire to want to understand himself, I should say the self. I think about death quite often, and one of those things that comes up is, after I'm dead, what will people remember of me? And always, it's just the same thing. It's how I made them feel. And so taking that lens, if you will, and looking at it through your daily life in how you treat other people and how you say hello to other people and how you say goodbye to other people, how you treat strangers, perhaps, it really changes the paradigm that you operate from. At least for me, it's changed the paradigm that I operate from. And that paradigm is long after Elijah's dead, and let's say I'm a soul that can view the record of my life and all of my actions, right? Looking back on how I want to show up with other people today, my friends, my family, with strangers, will I be at peace with how I have showed up to everyone in my life? Will I be at peace? It can be a very startling lens to look through if it's been some years since you've cleaned out the skeletons and the dust out of your closets. Nevertheless, I believe so fervently that it's a very worthwhile lens to explore, even though it may be very painful. What has really helped is to walk with that teacher in my life of death. What is most important? Death has a way of showing us exactly what is most important to us. I would like to read you a piece of writing that I had put together, I believe just last night. I was kind of just getting some thoughts out. My achievements may very well die with my body. What will outlive me on this earth is my spirit and the memories and feelings I leave with those I've touched. The only thing of importance that will remain after I leave this earth is those memories and those feelings I have left with others. When I am gone, I will live on through those whose lives I've been blessed enough to touch. True wealth. True wealth is proportionate to one's realization of love. True love is an eternal wealth that only appreciates the more it is shared. He who has money is a rich man. He who knows love is a wealthy man. May I value what I have second to what I am. And may we all value what we are to your self-discovery.